let's do this. Ready to dive into some slasher goodness?
Always.
Today we're tackling New Year's Eve.
Ooh, a classic.
Yeah, a 1980s slasher that, takes New Year's Eve and, twists it into something totally creepy.
Definitely sets the bar high for holiday horror.
Right. Who needs fireworks when you've got a killer on the loose?
So imagine this. You're a punk rock DJ in LA.
Okay, I'm listening.
It's New Year's Eve, you're live on the air, and suddenly you start getting these creepy calls from a mysterious killer.
Uh-oh.
And this guy, he's not just making idle threats.
No.
He's got this whole twisted plan to murder someone in each U.S. time zone as the new year rolls in.
Whoa, using the time zones.
I know, right? Like a deadly countdown across America.
Genius.
And to make matters worse, he plays back the sounds of his victims on the air.
Oh, that's just messed up.
Totally. It's like he's turning the radio waves into his own personal torture chamber.
And you know what's really scary? What's that?
That premise, the whole ticking clock thing, it plays on this primal fear we all have, that feeling of time slipping away and something terrible inevitably approaching.
You're right. It's not just about who's going to die next.
Exactly.
It's about the terrifying certainty of it all, this countdown that you can't stop no matter what you do.
And by using the radio, the killer makes the audience complicit.
Oh, totally.
Like they're all trapped in this nightmare with the DJ.
Yeah, and it makes you think about the power of media, right? How easily it can be used to manipulate and control people, even to spread fear.
Absolutely. It's like the film is holding up a mirror to society and asking some really uncomfortable questions about how we consume information, how we let ourselves be influenced by these outside forces.
It's funny how a slasher film from the 80s can still feel so relevant today.
It is.
We might not be worried about killer DJs calling into radio stations, but we've got our own modern-day anxieties about technology and the way it can be used to spread fear and misinformation.
Exactly. And that's what makes this film so interesting to unpack. It's not just about the blood and guts.
Right.
It's about those deeper anxieties that we all share, those fears that lurk beneath the surface of our everyday lives.
So let's talk about our main character, Diane Blaze Sullivan. She's this cool, confident punk rock DJ.
She's got that rock star energy for sure.
Totally. And she's hosting this big New Year's Eve show from a fancy hotel in Hollywood.
Ooh, setting the scene.
Yeah, but as the killer's body count rises, the hotel turns into this lockdown fortress. The tension just keeps ratcheting up.
I bet. And I'm guessing poor Diane is right in the middle of it all.
You guessed it. She becomes the killer's ultimate target.
So he's coming for her specifically, not just anyone at the hotel.
Right. And he's relentless. There's this one scene where he even steals a car with a little girl in the back seat after a run-in with a biker gang.
Wow.
It's intense. And it shows you just how far he's willing to go.
Ruthless.
Totally. And then comes the big reveal the moment you find out who the killer is.
Okay, hit me with it.
It's Diane's husband, Richard.
No way. Her own husband.
Yep. Talk about a plot twist.
That's cold.
I know. And it makes you wonder, what could drive someone to do something so horrific to their own spouse?
Yeah. What's his deal?
Well, the Wikipedia page kind of hints at this whole cocktail of motives.
Okay.
Resentment, jealousy, maybe even some good old-fashioned misogyny.
Oh, wow. So it's like he's punishing her for being successful.
Right. It's like he can't handle the fact that she's this powerful, independent woman.
I'm starting to get some serious Norman Bates vibes from this guy.
You and me both. He's got this warped sense of reality, and Diane has somehow become the symbol of everything he hates.
It's scary how sometimes the most terrifying villains are the ones hiding in plain sight. The people you think you know, the ones you trust.
Totally. But before we spiral too far down that rabbit hole, let's switch gears for a second and talk about the music.
Okay, always down for a good soundtrack.
Because this is where New Year's Evil really stands out. It's got this killer new wave and punk rock vibe that's a far cry from your typical horror movie score.
Oh, I love that. It's like the music becomes another character in the film.
Totally. And it really captures the energy of the time period, the whole punk rock scene that was exploding in LA back then.
It's like the soundtrack is a time capsule.
Right. And it creates this really cool contrast between the supposed revelry of New Year's Eves and the brutal reality of what's actually happening.
It's that juxtaposition that makes it so unsettling.
Exactly. And speaking of cool contrast, did you know that this film was made during the 1980 actor strike?
Oh, really?
Yeah, which actually opened doors for a lot of up-and-coming talent, like Kip Niven, who plays Richard.
Interesting. So it was kind of a blessing in disguise for some folks.
Totally. It gave them a chance to shine when a lot of established actors were sidelined.
And I bet that indie spirit, having to work around the strike and everything, probably added to the film's energy.
Oh, absolutely. They were working with a super tight budget, using whatever resources they could scrounge up.
Makes you appreciate their dedication, right?
Definitely. You can feel that raw, gritty energy in every frame. But of course, once the film was out there, it was up to the critics to decide its fate.
The judges.
Exactly. And let's just say the reception for New Year's Evil was, well, a mixed bag.
Like a New Year's Eve party playlist gone wrong?
Pretty much. You had some critics, like Roger Ebert, who found it a bit predictable.
Okay.
A little too heavy on the gore.
I can see that.
But he did acknowledge its throwback appeal, like a homage to those classic slasher tropes.
Right.
But then you had Variety, which was way harsher.
Oh, no.
They basically said the only redeeming quality was the punk rock performances.
Ouch. That's gotta sting.
Yeah, talk about a scathing review. But it's interesting to see how those initial reactions compare to how people view the film today.
Oh, yeah. Like, how is it aged?
Right. Nowadays, New Year's Evil is often praised for its unique blend of slasher tropes, that punk rock aesthetic, and its just overall crazy energy.
Like it's become a cult classic.
Yeah, it definitely has. It's like a time capsule that captures a very specific moment in horror cinema.
And that evolution of how we perceive films.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
Totally. What was once seen as derivative or formulaic can later be reevaluated and appreciated for its historical context, its influence on later films.
And maybe even just for its sheer entertainment value, Sometimes you just want a fun, cheesy slasher flick.
Exactly. So we set the stage, the plot, the characters, the killer, even the music. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. Now let's plunge deeper into the heart of New Year's Evil and explore those themes that make this film tick and keep audiences coming back for more, even after all these years.
Let's do it. One of the things that really strikes me about New Year's Evil is how it taps into all those anxieties we were talking about, but especially through this lens of gender,
Okay, yeah, explain that.
Well, think about Diane.
Okay.
She's successful. She's independent.
Right.
She's got a voice. Like she's a force to be reckoned with.
In this male-dominated punk scene.
Exactly. But then she becomes a target. She's stripped of her power by this killer, by his actions.
Right.
It's almost as if the film is suggesting that women who dare to step outside of traditional roles, women who achieve a certain level of success, that they're somehow deserving of punishment.
That's a pretty heavy interpretation, but I can see how you could read it that way.
Yeah.
Especially when you consider the time period. This was the early 80s.
Yeah.
The peak of second wave feminism. Women were challenging traditional gender roles,
Yeah.
They were fighting for equal rights.
Absolutely. And there was definitely a backlash against that progress, a lot of anxiety around it.
Totally.
And some of that anxiety, well, it manifested in popular culture.
You see it in the movies, the music, the TV shows of that era.
Exactly. It wasn't just happening in the political arena or in social movements. It was seeping into everything.
Right.
And in New Year's Evil, well, we see that anxiety played out in this very visceral way.
Yeah.
You had this killer. He embodies that patriarchal fear of female empowerment.
And he's using technology, the radio, to terrorize and silence a woman who represents everything he despises.
Right. He's trying to put her back in her place,
Yeah.
control her narrative, remind everyone who's really in charge.
It's so creepy, especially because he's her husband.
Yeah.
It adds this whole other level of betrayal to the story.
Right. It makes you question who you can trust.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Even within your own family.
Yeah, like those closest to you.
There can be these dark undercurrents, hidden agendas that you might never see coming.
That's a theme that runs through a lot of slasher films.
True.
But it feels especially potent in New Year's Evil.
I think it also makes you think about the role of media in all of this.
Oh, absolutely.
Diane is this public figure. She's on the radio. She has an audience. And the killer, he's using that platform against her.
He's manipulating the media to amplify his message, terrorize not just Diane, but her listeners as well.
It's like he's preying on that inherent vulnerability that comes with being a public figure.
Yeah, like you're putting yourself out there, exposing yourself to the world.
And that can make you a target.
It also highlights the power of the media, right? To shape public perception, manipulate emotions.
It's crazy. When we first started talking about this film, I thought it was going to be a pretty straightforward slasher flick,
Yeah.
But the more we dig into it, the more I realize how much is going on beneath the surface.
There's so much there.
It's like a reflection of those cultural anxieties, but it's also a commentary on the media, on gender dynamics, on the very nature of fear itself.
And it's fascinating how something made in 1980 can still feel so relevant today.
I know, right?
We're still grappling with those same anxieties, even if they manifested in different ways.
Fear of technology, manipulation of media, the struggle for equality, it's all still happening.
It's all still happening.
It's a testament to the filmmakers.
Absolutely.
They were working with a limited budget,
Yeah.
but they managed to create something that transcends its genre limitations.
They tapped into something deeper, something that spoke to the anxieties of their time.
And somehow that message is still resonating with audiences decades later.
It makes you wonder about the film's ending, though.
Oh, yeah.
We're left with this chilling image of Diane's fate kind of hanging in the balance.
Totally.
It's not clear if she survives or if she becomes another victim.
Ugh, that ending. And then that final scene where they reveal that Derek, Diane's son,
Oh, no.
he's taken on his father's mantle. He puts on the killer's mask
Seriously?
and drives off with Diane in the ambulance.
Wow, what a gut punch.
It's like the filmmakers just decided to shatter any sense of closure we might have had.
It's brilliant, though, right? Instead of wrapping everything up neatly,
Yeah.
they leave us with more questions than answers.
And that ambiguity makes the film so haunting.
It really does.
It's like even though the killer is dead, the evil that drove him, it lives on.
Right. And it makes you think, what's going to happen to Derek?
Exactly.
Is he going to follow in his father's footsteps?
Embrace that darkness and rage.
Or will he find a way to break the cycle, escape the legacy of violence?
It's a chilling thought, for sure.
It's a testament to the film's power,
Yeah.
that it can provoke these kinds of thoughts, engage with these complex, uncomfortable themes.
Especially within a genre that's often associated with, mindless violence and jump scares.
Right.
New Year's Evil, it might not give us all the answers, but it definitely leaves us with a lot to think about. I'm still reeling from that ending.
It gets you, right.
Yeah, it's like they took a sledgehammer to any hope for, like, a happy ending.
It's brutal.
But maybe that's the point, like maybe the real horror isn't the violence itself. It's that lingering trauma, that feeling that the evil, like it never really goes away.
That's a really interesting thought. And it makes me think about the film's setting, Los Angeles.
Oh, yeah, we talked about L.A. and those anxieties of the era.
But think about it.
Oh.
L.A. in the late 70s, early 80s,
Right.
it had this reputation.
Right, glamour and grit.
Exactly. Hollywood glitz, the punk scene.
But also like rising crime rates, gang violence, this like underlying sense of unease about the future.
It was a city of contrasts.
Totally. It's like the city itself becomes a character in the film,
Right.
reflecting all that darkness and uncertainty.
And that sense of urban paranoia,
Yeah.
feeling unsafe even in your own home.
That was a big theme in a lot of films from that era.
You see it in Death Wish, The Warriors, Taxi Driver.
All tapping into that fear of the city as this chaotic, dangerous place.
Right. And in New Year's Evil, that fear is amplified by how the killer uses technology.
Yeah. He's not just lurking in dark alleys.
He's invading their homes through the radio waves.
It's like he's turning their safe spaces into battlegrounds.
Exactly. Blurring the lines between public and private, the familiar and the terrifying.
It's also messing with that growing anxiety about the media's power.
Oh, yeah.
This was when cable TV was exploding.
24-hour news cycles.
Right. The idea that someone could use that technology to spread fear, it must have been really unsettling back then.
Imagine, the first time you realized that the news isn't always objective, that it can be used to manipulate you.
It's like a precursor to our anxieties about social media.
Totally.
How misinformation can spread so quickly.
And have real-world consequences.
We might not have Twitter and Facebook in the film.
But that feeling of vulnerability.
Yeah, being exposed, manipulated by unseen forces.
It's definitely there. And don't forget, the film itself is a product of that media landscape.
New Year's Evil.
It's a low-budget slasher made outside the studio system.
So it has that raw, gritty feel.
It relies on that immediacy to connect with the audience.
It's like they're saying, hey, this could happen anywhere, even in your living room on New Year's Eve.
It's effective, right?
Yeah. Oh, totally. It takes those familiar slasher tropes.
Yeah. The masked killer, the final girl.
And it gives them this extra layer of meaning, this social commentary, this cultural anxiety.
It works on multiple levels.
Right. You can enjoy it as a fun, scary movie.
But you can also dig deeper.
find those deeper meanings.
And that's what makes it so interesting to discuss,
It's a film that's both a product of its time and a timeless exploration of, human nature.
Our capacity for darkness.
But also resilience.
And it leaves us with so many questions.
Oh.
Maybe that's the best kind of horror.
The kind that sticks with you.
Makes you think.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive into New Year's Evil,
Yeah.
think about that ending.
The trauma.
The cyclical nature of violence.
Think about those reflections on gender, on media manipulation, that feeling of unease in a world on the brink of change.
Could New Year's Evil be a cautionary tale? Not just about the dangers lurking in the shadows, but about the shadows we carry within ourselves, the potential for darkness that exists in all of us.
That's a great point to end on.
Happy New Year, everyone, and sweet dreams.